We are pleased to welcome Dr. Kim Hamilton from Focus Maine, who will now turn our vision forward and outline how these three globally competitive and high growth fields are bringing new opportunity to Maine and Mainers. A reminder to submit your questions for Dr. Hamilton in the group chat. There's a group chat window. Your questions will be shared with her after her presentation, and her answers will be published in our post-conference email. I'd like to welcome Dr. Hamilton.
Good morning, everyone. It is such a pleasure to join you here this morning after such an extraordinary set of presenters. I've been doing my own homework on Joshua Chamberlain and thinking about the parallels between his work and extraordinary legacy and that of Focus Maine. And so I am by no means a Chamberlain scholar, but it wasn't difficult to see the linkages between his centennial address and the work that we're doing of Focus Maine. I think his perspectives on the natural competitive advantages in Maine struck so many chords for me. His view on the opportunities and really indeed the imperatives to both conserve and steward our natural resources while also adding value. His understanding of Maine's place within the global economy, and I think his deep belief in the people of Maine. These are really the fundamental building blocks of the Focus Maine strategy. So let's move to the first slide. And we believe, as he did, and now I'm going to quote Chamberlain, that Maine may justly hold an important and honorable part in the fortunes of this country. And so that's why I've entitled my comments today, A Reason for Hope in Turbulent Times. So let's go to the next slide. So after starting on really a positive note, and I think really following on some of Charlie's comments, I don't want to be too much of a downer, but I did want to take a look at what we call a triple threat that's facing Maine at the moment. And if we flip to the next slide. I think it's worth naming these, although we're pretty familiar with them now. A shrinking workforce that really demands some serious discussions about, both increasing productivity, but also increasing the size and skills of Maine's talent pool. An economy that's fueled by local businesses that serve primarily the local Maine economy, and of course the pandemic that Charlie, so poignantly discussed just recently, that has really highlighted Maine's precarious position in some ways at this time. If you go to the next slide. However, we see a pathway out of these challenges, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. We're optimistic about our collective future, and I think we have a model that helps us point us in that direction. We are a private sector-led job creation initiative. We take a very unique approach to job creation. First, we're focused, like our name says, on three sectors with enormous potential: agriculture, aquaculture, and the life sciences, and in particular, biopharmaceuticals. Ag and aquaculture form our food economy work, and I should probably warn you, you might get hungry listening to this presentation. And the life sciences and biopharma in particular. Because these are emerging sectors, our role really is to help unlock the potential within those sectors and to help accelerate the creation of jobs. Second, we're working on both building businesses and providing the tools they need in these sectors, and also attracting businesses that are looking to export their goods and services outside of the state. And so this really leads to what I call our third differentiator. We take a growth-oriented, export-oriented approach because the jobs created in these kinds of businesses have a multiplier effect on the local economy. So for every job created, roughly another 1.6 jobs are created in the local economy. And these jobs tend to be full-time, they tend to come with benefits, and they tend to pay a higher wage. So these are good jobs for the people of Maine. I did want to say a couple of words about our terrific leadership team and our set of advisors. These are individuals who are not only leaders in their own sectors, but they're also committed to the vision that we're pursuing for Maine. And I also especially want to give a shout out to Andrea Maker, who will chair the the closing panel today. She is not only the animating spirit behind Focus Maine and our co-chair, but she has just been a tremendous colleague, a visionary, and somebody who really pushes us to do our best every single day. So thank you, Andrea. I hope you're watching. We really appreciate your support. If you move to the next slide, the other thing we do is we work with partners. So we determined at the outset that we could go further, faster by really aligning with high capacity partners who share our vision and share our goals. So essentially, we've worked to harness the talent and the energy that resides in these organizations and to point this towards job creation. So as you can see here, each of these organizations is playing a very unique and specialized role within the overall strategy, but together we are 8 organizations strong, really dedicated to this mission. The other thing I wanted to share is that you may have seen that Focus Maine is one of the grant recipients that was recently announced in the $500 million slate of investments by the Alphon Foundation this past week. We were especially pleased to be included with these other grantees because we're working alongside many of these organizations to not only create jobs, but really to create careers that great talent coming out of these organizations can step into, and we think this is one of the ways that we're going to continue to help retain talent in the state. This grant paves the way for the next 3 years for us for deeper collaboration with these institutions, with our partners, and also to help, of course, grow jobs in our sectors. I want to talk a bit more about why we selected these sectors, their exceptional potential, and start with life sciences. So when we picked these sectors, I'd say much like Chamberlain, we looked at Maine's inherent assets and we looked at the global economy. So biopharma manufacturing in particular jumped out at us for several reasons. Maine, of course, already has world-class capacity in the life sciences. We also have, in case you haven't noticed, a proximity to Boston, lower business costs, and lower real estate prices compared to Boston. But really, that wasn't enough to push us in this direction until we really looked at, how does this sit in the global economy? So when you look at the density of activity in Boston and the demand for new talent in the bioscience space, along with some other trends, it was really clear to us that this was a place where Maine could really win. And so now with the Roux Institute, the announcement of UNE's medical school in Portland, and I think a growing recognition of Maine's contributions to the fight against the pandemic, whether it's Jackson Labs, Puritan, the work that Abbott's doing, I think we're even more bullish on the opportunities in this sector and really the opportunity for Maine to become that northern anchor in a Portland to Boston innovation corridor. And on the next slide, just a little bit about what we've done. So, over the next 3 years, we're anticipating significant progress in this area. We are especially focused on attracting more companies to Maine, and we've been building out a pipeline of interest and efforts to bring those companies across the finish line. BioMaine and Maine & Company, of course, have been terrific partners in this effort with us. On the next slide, I look a little bit at our food economy work, and we very much took the same approach here, looking at Maine's assets like abundant water, proximity to markets and consumers in the Northeast. And then we did the crosswalk with global trends, the increased interest in nutritious local food, the interest among young farmers in Maine, as Senator King mentioned that this morning, and more recently, the need to secure local and supply chains that has been highlighted, I think, so painfully by the COVID pandemic. And so combining, the local assets and global trends, Maine's food economy really jumped out as an opportunity for us. And the next slide gives you a little bit more detail on how we think about this. we're working with the Maine Center for Entrepreneurs and coastal enterprises, especially on this effort, and creating what we're calling a continuum of care. So this is for Maine's food and beverage companies to meet them by stage of growth, by need, and to really help them move both become stronger companies and to be able to export more of their goods and services outside of the state. And so starting with the Top Gun program for very early stage companies and the market share program for companies that want to get smarter about, how do I export to what markets, what price should I be looking at, et cetera. So the next slide looks a little bit at what we've accomplished. We've worked with more than 65 companies who have benefited from our programs. We're continuing to refine what I just spoke to you about, increase our outreach to Maine food and beverage companies over the next 3 years, and importantly, to introduce more investors to opportunities in this food economy space. So if you are aware of food companies and beverage companies that could benefit from this kind of support, please don't hesitate to send them in our direction. So moving to aquaculture on the next slide, this is the third area that we focus on. And so obviously, a part of our food economy work, there were very, I think, special reasons that we believe position Maine to succeed in this sector. Obviously aquaculture has been around for a long time, but we're looking at how do we actually scale this work, building on the global demand for protein and the opportunities we see here in the US to move from a net exporter of seafood to an importer of seafood and really rely on domestically grown seafood. So this work includes, developing business tools, looking at new technologies, including around land-based aquaculture, exploring opportunities even at the intersection of life sciences and aquaculture. So in other words, are there medical benefits as well as nutritional benefits that we can draw from our ocean assets? So this is a very, I think, dynamic and exciting sector that's really starting to emerge. The other thing that we've done is to identify what the labor force needs are within aquaculture, and we're beginning to build out programs around that to help meet the talent demand. For this body of work, we work closely with the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, Maine Aquaculture Association, Maine & Company, and Educate Maine on pulling these strands together. We're also part of a $2 million EDA grant that's come to this state to help us grow the Maine marine economy. So that's just another example, I think, of the good things that are happening in Maine that can really help propel this sector. If you move to the next slide, our aquaculture work has helped us support in just 3 years 45 companies, including at the startup stage. We're building a pipeline of companies that are interested in exploring opportunities in the state. And we now have a slate of business tools that have just been released through the Maine Aquaculture Association that can really help sea farmers target their growth plans by species. So a lot of really exciting work happening here. If you move to the next slide, I did want to say, in the next session, you're going to hear from a couple of pioneering women food producers like Amber Lamke from Maine Grains and Bree Warner from Atlantic Sea Farms. And I hope you'll hear from them about why Maine is so uniquely positioned in this space. I suspect they'll tell you it also takes hard work, it takes teamwork, it takes strategy, it takes perseverance, and these are qualities that these leaders have in spades. And so, I really look to both Bree and Amber, not only as successful growth and export-oriented food businesses, but really as people who are at the forefront of this sector, showing us the way. So huge kudos to them, and I'm really looking forward to the session coming up. If you go to the next slide, did want to say a few words about skills and talent this morning. We know that Maine businesses cannot thrive without great talent, and so that's why we're doing our part to help retain the next generation of leaders, of entrepreneurs, of makers and doers who are helping to drive the Maine economy. by the way, I don't think Chamberlain mentioned internships, but I think he would understand their tremendous value. We are, in fact, running what we call the Focus Maine Internship Experience Program with Educate Maine. And over the past 3 years with Educate Maine and Live and Work in Maine, we've introduced more than 1,500 interns to opportunities across the state. We work with 40 different employers, 7 different academic institutions, to make sure that these young people understand not just the opportunities in the industry where they're working, but the opportunities across the state of Maine, and that they can come to enjoy the quality of life that we all appreciate here. So we know through our pre and post survey that we give to the interns that by virtue of participating in this program, they're more interested in continuing to work for the employer they intern with, and they're more interested in staying in the state. So we think about this as creating kind of stickiness in 2 directions. So we're really excited about where this program is going. On the next slide, you can see that we've got a lot more planned over the next 3 years, and I will certainly look forward to sharing more with you as that work comes to fruition. We will be working with our partners. We have determined through a strategy refresh process this past year that the fundamentals of our strategy remain strong. So we are continuing, very, deeply in the 3 sectors that I just outlined, and really building on the groundwork that we have built over the past 3 years. If you go to the next slide, I did want to return to that sort of triple threat. So what about that triple threat? So, I do hope that this presentation has brought you some hope during these turbulent times, as promised. And I hope it has also demonstrated why we're feeling especially optimistic about being able to defang, if you will, this triple threat. So instead of a shrinking workforce, we see a growing workforce. Instead of an economy fueled by local businesses, we see an economy fueled by those same great businesses, that same great ingenuity, but with markets across the country. And instead of a state surviving the pandemic, we really envision a state that's thriving despite the pandemic by leaning into these assets and these global trends. So if you'll bear with me in the words of Chamberlain, who I now think is one of Maine's great optimists. To quote him, he'd say, brighter days are in store for Maine. So I think that's a very good way to close this presentation. And just the last slide, I just want to thank you all, so much today for the work that you're doing on behalf of Maine, for being a part, I think, of a bold new vision for the state, and for really helping us help the state succeed. So please stay in touch. Let me know if you have any questions about our work, and enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you very much.